Good morning, everyone. How we doing? No, we can do better than that. Good morning. How we doing? That's much better. You stole it from me. Happy St. Patrick's Day. Thank you guys for joining us on this high holy holiday of beer drinking and cabbage and all things Irish. So, in case you're confused, we're at Newfields today. If anybody doesn't understand what that means or is a little confused because they thought they were at a training for the Indianapolis Museum of Art, you're all in the same place, and we'll go over what that looks like later on in our training session, okay? Today is a time for all things spring. I think we're all ready for that, right? So, as we've started to review what kind of training we need to do, and we've built these types of training sessions with our volunteers, our lead volunteers in particular, and some very special volunteers that help me out behind the scenes. It's a great opportunity for us to be able to help you understand the concepts that we're building here on campus, because it's a little bit different than what we've normally traditionally done, and than what you've seen in a traditional museum setting, because, as we all know, we're much more than a museum. We're a cultural campus. So, today is built around providing information for spring, as well as what specific things you're going to be able to help us do to activate it, all right? In case you don't know and you're brand new, my name is Chris Morehead. I'm the manager of volunteer services here at Newfields. I also take care of our internship program, which we are currently in the middle of accepting applications for summer. So if you know any youth or you yourself are interested in pursuing an internship at Newfields, I can also help you with that. So please help us communicate that out. We need lots of really good intern candidates in order to do what we do here at Newfields and hopefully provide an educational experience for them as well. This is a lovely picture from our volunteer appreciation reception. Who was able to join us for that? Look at all those hands. That's wonderful. If you were not able to join us for that, there was a volunteer gift that was handed out. It's a beautiful little new bag that you can utilize for spring. If you are a current volunteer, you can get one of those. Don will have those available for you after our training session today in the office. My Vanna White, if you will, Don Knipe is right here. She is amazing and helps me with all things, including keeping my head on straight. She's a really good boss, I will say. She takes very good care of me. But if you have any questions, either myself or Dawn can help you out at any point during this training session, okay? Just so you guys know. I want to go over our agenda for today just so you understand how the day breaks up, because we took your feedback from previous training sessions and we split the day into 3 parts. So what you're in right now is our first session from 10 to 11 o'clock. This is for all volunteers. Everybody, just so we get a little bit of a sneak peek and preview of what spring is all about from Jonathan. And then Lindsay's going to go over the guest experience quotient of that. What does it mean for volunteers to be here, and what are we doing outside in the gardens? What does that look like? What is the impact of that? So that'll be for our first session for everybody. The second session is focused in on training for specifically the information guide role, as well as a little snippet on the ambassador program. So obviously that's geared for newer volunteers. If you are a veteran volunteer and you feel like you got a good handle on it because you did spring blooms last year and you helped out with winter lights, you don't have to stay for this part. You're going to get enough information in the first session to be able to feel comfortable with that. Now, if you're finding that you want to stay for a review or you don't feel like you have a handle on it, please stay and join us, because we would love current volunteers to go through that as well. And then our third session is for lead volunteers only. So everybody will be done as a regular volunteer by 12 o'clock, and then we'll switch into our lead volunteer training. So those are our lead volunteers that'll be helping to get you set up and trained, as well as make sure that you're feeling supported and appreciated throughout the spring experience. Does this make sense to everybody? Any questions in advance about this? Because I want to make sure that everybody feels comfortable, like what they're going to do and what they're going to stay for. Oh, sweet. That means I explained it right. All right, so very briefly, I wanted to go over some really fun things. So Jerry Wise, our CFO, had me spend hours and hours this week building this crazy cool presentation that I get to deliver to our Board of Governors next week. And I thought I would share some really cool things with you. Some of you have seen this already from the volunteer appreciation reception, but there's a really cool new slide that comes next to talk about it. So, volunteerism, what did it look like in fiscal year 2017? And why I put FY17, because that's how we work here at Newfields. For those of you that are not familiar with what we do as far as calendar year versus fiscal year. So, our fiscal year is actually July through June. Okay, so we're the better part of our way through our fiscal year 2018 right now. So we speak to 2017 numbers. And just to let you know, our 2018 numbers are like blowing the water out of this. And this is already impressive. So total active volunteers currently, including docents, is 659. We had 196 rookies join us last year. Like, that's incredible volunteerism. We are attracting new and more volunteers every single month. Don and I have the pleasure of getting to meet them through the volunteer group interview process and then the orientation. If you have activated or joined our volunteer team in the last year, can you raise your hand for me, please? Take a look around. Look at all those new faces. Welcome. Thank you, guys. I hope you're having fun so far. There's a lot more fun to be had. Total hours donated, and this is earth-shattering to us. When I first started here, we only had around 15,500 volunteer hours donated annually. We're up to 50,000 hours being donated every single year. That's a 237% increase over just 3 years ago. That's outstanding performance, you guys. Average hours donated per volunteer is 63.5. We continue to increase that year after year. I'd love to get us to the 80 hours donated per volunteer. Makes it a little difficult because we are thriving with group volunteerism, which is a great thing, but that's a whole bunch of people donating like one day. So we're constantly walking that battle and that fine line. But as long as we're progressing year after year on that, that keeps me incredibly happy. This is one thing that I'm most proud of is our volunteer program fill rate. So the fill rate is really, to me, the most important thing. Are we doing good? How is the volunteer program? Out of 100 volunteer openings, what percentage of those are we filling? And if you didn't know, we don't put superfluous volunteer openings out there. So some institutions will rely on like, okay, we actually need 20 volunteers, so let's ask for 100 and hopefully we'll land somewhere in the middle. We are not one of those institutions. We are very intentional about our needs. As you'll see from spring and our plan for it, we have very specific goals for each volunteer that's going to be helping us out. And so it's not like you're going to come in with 20 other people and not know what to do. You will know exactly what you're going to be doing. And so within that, it's really important that our fill rate is accurate. To have an 83% fill rate is insane. I mean, truly outstanding volunteerism. A really exceptional fill rate, just so you know, institution, like in volunteerism in general, is in the 70% range. So the fact that as an institution, we're at 83, that's crazy bananas good. I know, right? I'm full of like colorful language today. So, 2 different types of volunteerism that we have going on, and today is focused in our seasonal volunteerism, right? So we have volunteers that help us out throughout the entire year. They go through a volunteer group interview, and then they go through an orientation training process. Today is built to help provide support for those that are regular volunteers and to welcome new volunteers in a one-day mini crash session where you're going to be able to help us only with the seasonal initiative. This has turned out very successful for us. 90% of the people that joined us for Winter Lights as a seasonal volunteer stayed on. Right? Yeah, seriously, round of applause for that. One of them just got elevated to a lead volunteer, Miss Sharon Gamble. Yay! Congratulations, Sharon. So, what does seasonal volunteerism look like at Newfields? We started it with orchids last year. Okay, we'd never done it before. Let's just design something to help support a seasonal initiative and see what happens. We started off pretty darn strong. So we rolled it out with 120 shifts and enjoyed a 92% fill rate. So that's helping to drive our fill rate numbers, right? Then we rolled out spring blooms. We had 675 shifts, 1,900 hours donated for a 70% fill rate. Again, remember, 70%, that's exceptional as far as volunteerism is concerned. So we're in a 90% range. That's great. 70, still really, really good. Then we went to Winter Lights, which is like, I think everybody's proudest moment, to be honest. 824 shifts over 8 weeks, over 4,000 hours donated for a 98% fill rate. Literally the only reason why we didn't have things filled was either because of weather and people couldn't get here, or they were super, super sick. And I told them not to come because they needed to get better. Like, round of applause for incredible numbers for Winter Lights. Orchids, we just wrapped that up. I know, right? Like, look at that, 98% fill rate again. Like, so we didn't just have a one-off crazy thing with Winter Lights. We've built something great, and today is a big part of that. So what is spring going to look like from your perspective? Here's our plan. 732 shifts, almost 2,200 hours, and currently we're already at a 46% fill rate. So not even walking into the season, we've almost got half of the volunteer shifts filled. You can clap for that. That's good. That's amazing. For perspective, this is where we were with Winter Lights. So hopefully after today's session, you're gonna feel empowered and engaged and encouraged to go on and sign up and help us fill out all of these volunteer openings, because it's gonna be a really amazing time for us this spring. We're incredibly excited to talk through what the plans are. And in order to do that, I'm gonna bring up Mr. Jonathan Wright to talk about spring. Jonathan, come on up.
Good morning, everyone. I had not seen all of those numbers yet, of the recent ones. So a 46% fill rate, and we haven't even started, is kind of amazing. I just wanted, for those of you who I haven't had the pleasure of meeting yet, my name is Jonathan Wright. I have a very long title. It's the Ruth Lilly Deputy Director for, thank you. So it's in small font if you can't read all of that. Essentially, it means I am the garden guy here, and I have the distinct pleasure of working with all of you and our teams in throughout all of Newfields, and the teams that I really get to work the most with are our teams that run our 100-acre Fairbanks Art and Nature Park, the Madalena Felder Greenhouse, and our garden and all of our ground staff. And so things that happen outside, we all have a lot to do with. So I'm really excited to talk with you all about spring, and I'm so also grateful to see so many faces in the room that I got to know over the previous seasons, particularly Winter Lights, when so many of you stepped up. That 98% fill rate, Chris has people from other institutions calling him on a daily basis saying, "How are you doing this?" Really, we can't do it without all of you. The feedback, I think many of you have heard the feedback from some of the previous programs, but the number one thing that we heard from Winter Lights was everyone was so amazing. We felt so welcome. We felt so taken care of. And that's a huge part of what we do here, is we want people to have an amazing experience. And it may sound a little conceited to say, I know we're gonna do incredible art exhibitions and we can do beautiful things in the garden. What makes people come back and what makes sure they have an amazing time is the interaction they have with all of us. So thank you for all that you do for that. And so what I wanted to do was give you a little update, a little preview of what spring is here at Newfields this year. And in case anyone is wondering, I think I've heard 5 or 6 people already ask me, what happened to Spring Blooms? Is Spring Blooms going away? And Lindsay and I were joking yesterday, like, no, it's not going away. People loved it. We're growing it. And so rather than just saying, last year for the first time, we were saying, we have a garden, we have a garden, we have a garden, because we wanted people to know, people who didn't know, that we are more than just this incredible museum. So we sort of beat that drum last year, and it worked. People came. And so what we're hoping to do this year is extend that invitation. And so Hello Spring is our spring campaign to invite the community here to Newfields, because we're a little partial. We think that you can experience spring here in unbelievable ways that you can't do anywhere else in the state. And so you'll see billboards all over town pretty soon, and you'll see pretty broad social media presence. And the idea behind the whole campaign is that spring is arriving in stages at Newfields. Both in the garden and in the galleries, things continue to unfold and throughout the spring, and you have to come back repeatedly to experience it all. And so this is a really fun ad for a show that's going to open in May. So one of the things that we're a little sensitive to is people feeling like they've come and they've missed something. We want to always have something new coming. Just like in the garden, I'll show you in a moment that crocus and dwarf iris are followed by daffodils, which are followed by tulips, which are followed by ornamental onions. There's always something blooming. We always have something unrolling in programming, and we always have new things opening in the galleries. So 2 big things that are opening in the galleries that are really exciting this spring. One is an exhibition on hats called Best Ben. And I'm going to talk to you about the art because I don't know it as well. You'll see when I start talking about the plants, I know that a little bit better. I made a big gaffe in front of the entire IMA, the museum staff, the curatorial staff, and all of Newfields staff at an all-staff meeting, and started talking about an exhibition. And one of the curators in the room said, "You do realize that those are all our pieces. They're not on loan." I was describing it as this incredible show that's being loaned to us, and no, it's all ours. We own it all. So I'm going to stick mostly to flowers today. But don't let that fool you. We have incredible things unfolding across the whole campus, and Chris is going to make sure you have info on all of that. And when you arrive each day to help us, we'll make sure you have all the info you need to direct folks. But Collecting Contemporaries is a show that's going to open in May, which is the largest collection of works on paper ever gifted to this institution. And it's from Kay Cook and the Wolf family. And it includes incredible works by well-known contemporary artists. So there are Warhols and all sorts of incredible pieces in this show that will open in May. We also have this incredible hat show, which sounds weird for a garden guy to be excited about a hat fashion exhibition, but it's called Best Ben, the Mad Hatter of Chicago, is that the full title? And these are hats from the 20s, 30s, 40s, and he was an incredible milliner who made these fanciful hats. Apparently, materials were very in short supply during the war, so he had to get creative, and he used things like stuffed animals and fake vegetables on these hats, and caught the attention of people like Elizabeth Taylor and Lucille Ball. So these celebrities were wearing these fanciful hats. I think of it as like the precursor to Lady Gaga, and so these are these over-the-top hats, and a lot of them are nature-inspired with butterflies and cabbages and moths, so it'll be really fun to have that happening in the galleries as well. Evening hours, because nature works overtime in the spring. People loved coming later in the evening last year. So we were going to be making that official, and we're going to extend it through the whole season this year. So starting in spring, we will be open Thursday, Friday, Saturday evenings until 8 p.m. And we're going to give people an extra hour on Sunday mornings. So if you happen to get out of church early, or if you want to come here and commune in the trees, we'll be open at 11. So we'll always open at 11, and we'll be open till 8 on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday evenings, so people can enjoy extra hours in the garden and in the galleries. We're open campus-wide for those hours. So as I said, I know a little bit more about the flowers, so I wanted to give you an overview of what's happening in the garden. As I said, Spring Blooms is not going away. The garden is going to be as colorful as ever, if not more. Our gardeners have, our horticulturists worked overtime this last spring, critiquing and analyzing every bed. For those of you who were here, you saw big carpets of color. We don't just repeat what we did the year before. They've come up with completely new designs for all of the new garden areas that we enhanced last year. 130,000 new bulbs went in the ground. You may remember we planted over 150,000 the year before. And from that 150,000, we only removed about 50 or 60,000 that were sort of considered annuals. They were in very seasonal display beds. Those that were removed were donated to local organizations. So we do a Bulbapalooza. Many of you were involved, where local organizations that do public greening, churches, parks can come in and get the bulbs that we're going to be getting rid of. So if you do the math, we planted 150,000, minus what we gave away. So we had an extra nearly 90, 100,000 in the ground last year. We've added another 130,000. So even more blooms than the year before. And then on top of that, we want to extend the bloom. So we'll be tucking into all those bulb beds, lots of spring annuals. And I'll show you some great photos in a minute. And by spring annuals, I mean things, the most obvious is pansies, but we're doing some fun interpretation in the garden to describe these plants that you'll all get to see. We think of pansies as sort of the comfort food of spring. And while we all love mac and cheese, you don't want to eat it every day, as Gwen Rager put it. So what are those things that you can add to the garden to spice it up? So I'll show you some of the ways that we're doing that to add color from the earliest of spring all the way through into summer. You can see here, the big icons are not the only areas that we've added bulbs and color for the spring, but you can see these are the areas that we've really added to. And so that's sort of, we're calling them featured flowers. We want people to know that you can sort of wander in any direction and you can't go wrong. This is what people will see as they're arriving. You may notice that there's a big empty space on the corner of 38th and Michigan at the moment. We have some fancy new sign letters coming up soon, arriving just in time for spring, that will spell out Newfields on the corner. And in front of that will be a big, beautiful, colorful planting that Patty Schneider, one of our horticulturists, designed. And Patty's whole point there was she wanted it to be vibrant and bright so it would catch your attention. It's a 25-mile-an-hour road, I believe, but people tend to go 50 or 60. So this is her 60, she calls this her 60-mile-an-hour border. And then Irvin Etienne, who's our horticultural display coordinator, essentially lead designer for the hort team. They all work with Irvin. Wants Noni's garden, that circular bed right up outside of the Ephraimson Entry Pavilion, to be really rich and saturated and vibrant and cheery and welcoming. Noni Krause, who that garden is named for, was apparently a very warm, cheery individual, and so he wanted this garden to reflect that with this great color scheme. And I mentioned a progression of blooms. Our horticulturists, so they're, I'm very fortunate to work with incredibly talented people who really know their stuff. And so if you look at sort of down in here, you've got hyacinths. Those will bloom very, very early, followed by little miniature daffs. And then as those fade, the bigger daffodils come on. All the while, things like these nemesias will be blooming. And as the nemesias are growing, things like these purple kale would have beautiful foliage color come in. I'm just gonna do this, it'll be easier. And the whole idea behind this is that there's always a combination of color and there's always something coming on. So when something starts to finish blooming, something else, it comes on to surprise you. And so from the earliest of things like the hyacinths to the latest of things like the Iceland poppies and the later double flowering tulips, you'll have a constant stream of color all season long. And so when people say, when's the best time to come? The answer is every couple of days from April through October. This is the Sutphin fountain bed. So this is if you've decided to stroll around the large fountain outside the cafe, or if you're sitting in the cafe looking out. Irvin does not like to be predictable. And so if you look at his previous bed, it's sort of bright, vivid color, and that tends to be what people think of when Irvin does things. So he wanted to completely fool people and go soft and muted and pastel. And in this case, I asked him where he came up with the idea, and he said he was playing off of the beautiful tones of the color, the limestone. And like when the sun sets and you get that beautiful light reflecting off the glass and hitting the limestone, it has sort of a sunset hue. So he took that as the inspiration for this. And again, lots of pansies, so there's early season color, but he wanted to work in things that are a little lesser known. So up here we have a beautiful wallflower, and down here we have a nemesia, which has a lovely fragrance. And again, Iceland poppies, we're working these in. And if you're sitting in the room panicking a little that you don't know all these plants, rest assured, we have an incredible member of our team named Jamie Fry, and Jamie is a guru in the world of plant records and plant nomenclature in the botanic garden world. We're very lucky to have her. And so she makes sure that every bed and every container will have a label, and everything that's in it is listed. And you might say, well, I don't know the difference between 5 different tulips if there are 5 different tulips in a bed. And so Jamie has provided to Chris, which will be available to all of you, this very thick, very heavy document, which has every single plant that's listed in anywhere in the garden is listed here with a little thumbnail photograph. So you'll be able to tell. I don't think we're going to print 1,000 of these, but these will be available in the volunteer office, so you'll be able to check. The other thing that I found last year was really helpful was, and this is embarrassing because I'm the guy who's supposed to know the garden, but when you have 5 really clever gardeners pulling the newest varieties and the most unusual things from every corner of the world, it's, I'm going to be able to tell you that that's a tulip, but I'm not going to know exactly what variety that is. And if I don't have this cheat sheet with me, it may be trouble. So I told people, oh, you got the one thing I don't know. So this is the line you can all use. And so why don't you snap a photo of it and either send it to us or post it and hashtag Discover Newfields with a question mark, what is this? We'll get back to you. And so that's another way you can engage people. If you don't have the answer at your fingertips, let them know you can find it and let Chris know. We'll find the answer for you, or encourage them to do it through social media, because that is another way to get more people involved. And what I really love is when people say, that's not that plant, and you get people arguing about it. And then you can say, well, come back and look at it in person. So this is Sutphin Fountain, and then as you come in, as you go into the garden, through the galleries, through the lower level of the museum and out into the garden, over the bridge, these are the bulbs that Irvin has put together for those combinations. So think of that beautiful, for those of you who were helping out with the winter lights, as you go over the Snowflake Bridge, it's going to become this beautiful, moody, sort of purple, burgundy color scheme for those containers for spring. Another one of our horticulturists, I mentioned Patty Schneider, who did the planting plan for out at 38th and Michigan. Patty is an amazing designer. She loves playing with, she's great at color, but she really is about texture. And so a lot of her designs have edible plants in them that have interesting foliage texture, leaf texture. And so if you look in this, there's a silver kale and a white-stemmed pak choi. Those are edible greens. This is a mustard green, an Asian mustard green that's got these beautiful fingery, filigreed purple leaves. And then on the upper left image there, that is a fritillary. That's a Mediterranean bulb that has this beautiful silvery foliage. And then playing off of that sort of silver with the splash of burgundy, she's gone all whites, soft yellows. And this is going to be at the bed in front of the Three Graces, which is the sculpture at the far end of the alley. If you're standing at the door of the Lilly Mansion and you're looking down the alley at the fountain, this is the bed in the distance. And this was because she loved the plantings she did last year, but she was sad that she had so many dark purples in that border that from a distance they disappeared. Like, black in an image from far away fades away. So she wanted this to all be light and bright and cheery and draw your eye and hopefully get you to wander down the lawn, because we always encourage people to walk on the grass. This is another of Patty's designs. Last year she did a moody silvers and purples and black flower theme in front of the Lilly Mansion, which was quite beautiful. And she said, that was really moody and dark and I loved it. She says, I want to think like little old lady grandmother combinations this year. What would a cottage garden look like? Frothy, soft pinks, ruffled, and she also has a lovely little 3-year-old who loves flouncy little tutus, and I think that had something to do with this too. But again, mixing in fun things like the cabbage. This is a big purple cabbage. So if people say, what, is that lettuce in that bed? I mean, that's kind of the fun thing, is that people will start pointing out or noticing plants that they don't think of as beautiful or that you wouldn't normally think of planting for ornament. But they're so gorgeous. And look at the purple on that cabbage. And then there are spring annuals. This one over here is stock, which is a really wonderful, sort of spicy, fragrant spring annual. This is Patty's combination. She's going a little wilder here. This is for the pots on the Lily House terrace. And so behind the Lily House, she wanted to go with something a little more interesting and a little more subtle, because those pots are quite tall, so you'll look at them at eye level. So she's chosen things with variegated foliage, interesting texture again. And then because the house has a big white facade, that rear facade of the house is white, she wanted to go with bright colors that would stand out against it, going with the reds and the oranges. Again, and I'm not showing you all of these expecting you to remind or to remember all of them, but I wanted to give you an idea of some of the thinking that goes into these plantings from our team. This is another one of Patty's designs for the bed that is across the whole. Actually, these are her containers, I believe, at the front of the greenhouse. So as you go into where the beer garden will be, this is her sort of soft, muted, like the purples and the burgundies, but with the pop of yellow. And again, lots of edibles, because we're going to be at the beer garden here. So burgundy pak choy, Asian greens, Asian mustard greens, cabbages, a lot of edible things in there, some of which we'll probably find, and there will be a lot of herbs in that area of the garden as well. So a lot of that will even find its way into the menu at the beer garden, we hope. Changing things up a little bit in the pop-up garden. So last year, the garden in the middle of the parking lot, what used to be the parking lot in front of the greenhouse, Gwen came up with a beautiful temporary display, but everyone loved it so much that we decided we can't just wipe it away. So it's back this year with, I think it's 15,000 new bulbs added to it. And rather than being all pinks and sort of muted tones, Gwen said she wanted to punch it up this year and make it fiery. So she went with these sort of oranges and rich, fiery color scheme. What's also fun about this is, did any of you see last year the 2 wire birds that Gwen made, and with the bird's nest made out of all the pruning debris from winter? So the nest will be back, and the birds will be back as well. Last year she called them iridescent finches because she painted them in sort of iridescent colors. She decided that they wanted a new do for the year, and they've been painted these fiery reds and oranges, and so they're now either fiery or flame finches. She's still trying to figure out what she wants to name them. And then this is in the southwest border garden. So for those of you who don't know the garden that well, I can pop back to the map image really quickly. But the border gardens are those shady borders that flank both sides of the allée. So if you're looking out from the Lilly mansion on either side, left or right of the big lawn, are big woodland border gardens. And we've added a lot of perennial bulbs to those more permanent areas of the garden. And so this is anemones and muscari and wonderful little dwarf alliums that will be perennial and come back for years and years and years, and make those woodland paths feel very magical as well. And as I said, these are not the only additions we're making to the garden. I just wanted to give you an overview of how our team is thinking about it. If you go out to the Tanner Orchard, last year we added a few thousand grape hyacinths under the white apple blossoms, so that you'd have carpeted blue under the white apple blossoms. It was really beautiful, but of course, what do gardeners do? If 3,000 bulbs is good, 15,000 bulbs has to be better. So we've added, hopefully you'll just see a little bit more in some of those areas as well. Should I hand it over to Lindsay, or do you want me to do questions? All right, well, I just wanted to give you a quick overview of the garden. I'll be around for a little bit, and we'll do questions a little bit later.
Thank you, Jonathan. All right, so as we're going through today, I want to make sure that we're not losing your questions, so please write them down. All 3 of us are going to stay, and the very last part of this training session is going to be a Q&A with all 3 of us, so that we can make sure that you get all the information that you have, so that then we can make sure that we're answering the questions that are left behind. Sound good? All right, without further ado, I'd like to bring up Lindsay, who's going to talk about our guest experience and how incredibly important you guys are towards that. There you go.
Thank you. I like the picture you chose for my background there.
I thought it complimented you.
Hi. So it's really great to be here with all of you. I know a lot of your faces already. I can't wait to meet all the rest of you. Hopefully I can remember everyone's name, but we'll see. So if I haven't met you before, my name is Lindsay Holstine. I'm the Director of Guest Experience here. I've been here for almost 7 years, so have a lot of past knowledge of how we used to be and kind of moving forward what we want to become. So today I'm going to talk a little bit about kind of where we're headed. So Most of you know this from Winter Lights if you were here training, but for the new people, I want to make sure that we talk about our mission. So as most of you know, we rebranded it last year in August to Newfields from the IMA, but our mission stayed the same. It was to enrich lives through exceptional experiences with art and nature. So we want to remain true to that for obviously years to come, but this is something that's really close to everything we do here and every decision we make here and every interaction we have with our guests. So if Newfields had a personality, what would that personality be? These 4 things. We would be charming, savvy, dynamic, and social. So every interaction that we have with our guests, we want to remember these 4 personality traits and try to emulate those with every interaction. So we want to be charismatic, but without trying too hard. We want to be knowledgeable. We want to be active for our mission and our beliefs. And we want to make sure we're always trying to make a connection with our guests, with each other, with our donors, with our community. So every time you're talking to someone here or interacting with each other, just remember these 4 personality traits. You can't really go wrong. Newfields creates memorable experiences. So this is something that I really want to focus on this year. I feel like with the guests here, we want to make sure that we create those memorable experiences so they come back. It's great to have all these first-time guests here for Winter Lights and spring, but we want them to come back. We want them to remember those great times they had here by creating photos in the garden and taking a tour in the gallery, really creating those experiences that will bring them back and that they can pass on to their friends and families and so on in the community. So if you're working here, you're a host. So a few years ago, we were visitor services, and I asked Charles if we could change it to guest services, because if you're a visitor, it's somewhere you're just someone that's just visiting. It's not very personal. It's just you're kind of going somewhere and not really planning to stay or come back. If you're a host or you're a guest, you want to treat people like that. If you have guests in your home, you don't have visitors, you treat them differently than what you would someone that you just met. So by being a host, that's you, all of you here, making sure that we make every guest here feel welcome and that they feel like they're coming somewhere that they know and they want to return. So what's our promise? As part of having exceptional experience at Newfields, we want our guests to feel that they're welcome, cared for, and important. So that's our promise that we have for everyone that we train. This training, particularly this guest service model training, everybody in the institution has taken, all the way up from Charles down to everyone part-time has taken this same training, so we're all on the same page when we talk to our guests. So we want to extend our stewardship, service, and excellence to our guests by being warm, helpful, and knowledgeable. So every interaction we have during spring with our guests, we want to remember these 3 things. And it's an easy reminder. We do have these little symbols down here. It's a sun for warmth, the hands for helpful, and a book for knowledge. Kind of little easy reminders so you can remember those 3 important things. So a Newfields host is warm. So I'm not going to read all of these, but we all know what that feels like when you have that warm conversation with someone. You know, you get a smile, you get that eye contact. You're not rushed in speech. You have to take the time to really connect with that person. Use open hand to show direction. We never point. So just these small things that really make a huge impact to our guests. We did this really well during Winter Lights. I know that it was really cold outside, but we always had that warmth within our customer service and our guest experience, and I think that's why we were so successful. We want to be helpful, so we want to proactively offer help. We don't want to sit back and wait for the guests to come to us. We want to walk up to the guests, say, "How are you? What can I help you with today?" As volunteers, you guys are really lucky. You don't have to stay in your particular spot always. You can kind of move around a little bit, so walking guests to where they want to go, just providing that extra layer of customer service that we all love. and knowledgeable. Of course, I know especially at the welcome desk, we get every question in the book, from what pavement company do we use, to what flowers over there, to what that tree is. So kind of knowing your role-specific critical information is very important. It's going to make you feel better, being more confident answering those questions. And Chris is really good about getting you all that information that you need. We'll always have handouts. One of us will always be here walking around to help answer any of those questions, so you'll never feel like you're not prepared. But we want you to, embrace those questions. And if you don't know the answer, like Jonathan said, get their information. We'll find it for them. I often have to email guests information within the gallery about a certain painting or something. We can ask our curators. We can ask Jonathan about the flowers, or maybe his horticulturist about the flowers, and get back to our guests. So what does spring look like from a guest experience placement of volunteers and staff? Let me actually skip to this one. So this has the key, so we can all kind of take a broader look at everything. So ambassadors are in red. So Chris will talk a little bit more about the ambassador position. And then the information guides are in orange. Again, he'll talk a little bit more about that later. But the orange position, the information guide, are really that seasonal extra layer of people that we love out there for our guests to interact with. And then staff is in yellow. We have a guest experience manager and a lead volunteer kind of living in this bubble that will be walking around everywhere within the museum, out in the garden, making sure that we're checking on everyone and you guys have all the information you need. So that's kind of an overview. Let me go back a more in-depth here. So these are also numbered, as you see there. So that's by priority level. So number 1 is our first priority within the museum, and that is AWC. So that's our special exhibition upstairs, and that will be, I think it's opening, I don't remember. But so that's our first priority. Number 2 is the information desk, where we hand out our art packs, and we're there for help with our guests. If they have questions coming upstairs, we're there to help that position. 3 is our garden entrance position. So that's outside, just outside of those garden entrance doors, kind of by where the employee check-in is. And that's a really critical position. It's our first interaction with the garden when our guest comes out, when our guests come outside. So having someone there is super important. And then number 4 is an Ephraimson, to make sure that we're welcoming our guests the best way we can and getting them to the location that they desire. So Chris is actually going to go over each one of these positions and your talking points and script and everything in these locations, so you have all that. But I kind of wanted to talk to you, at least today, about why it's so critical to have these places, people in these places. So you'll see we really try to have a volunteer or a staff along the way where we can continue to touch, not physically, but we continue to touch guests. I always say that. Continue to get them, pass them off to each other along the way. That's a better way to put it. So we want to, you'll see here in the next slide, really positioning people strategically that we found through Spring Blooms last year and then Winter Lights, where people really have the most questions, where they're confused, all of that. So out in the garden, our information guide priority 1 is at what we call the hub. It's kind of this center point here where the guest has to make a decision to go straight or right. So that's a great point for someone to be in. It's really important for our guests to be able to know where they're going. We will have a map, of course, so that'll help. But having those people out there to help our guests. Number 2 is at the Four Seasons Garden. So over here is really activated with a lot of different ideas. So Lily House and the greenhouse and the beer gardens all over there. Over here is kind of a little bit more quiet. So we want to make sure we have someone over there so our guests understand that they can go back through the fountain area, through the border garden, that there are flowers and things to interact with back there. So that's one position we found really important last year. And it was a really confusing point for our guests. So that's number 2. Number 3 is going to be near our Lily House alley area. So that's another point that we can help our guests understand, that you have to go to the bottom level to go through Lily House, that the beer garden is just ahead, and then also answer any questions about flowers or anything there. And then number 4 is that Garden for Everyone. And that's another position. It's kind of on the back end of their loop, so or the front end, depending on which way they go outside. We don't really have a designated path this year. Last year, we tried to push everybody to the right, and they would go this way around and then come back. Last year we found that guests didn't really care. They really wanted to go straight and get a drink in the beer garden first, so so they could walk around with it, because they're absolutely able to do that. So they can get a drink, get a pretzel out there, walk around the garden, enjoy it. So we want to make sure we're getting our guests what they need and what they desire when they first get there. So if their bellies are telling them they need a drink or pretzel, that's where we want to get them first. So number 4 is important, though, because it's, again, on that back side there, just another point of touch for our guests. And so that's what it looks like holistically. So you can really see we put a lot of thought in trying to make sure that we have someone to pass off to the next person. So there will be roaming people, like the lead volunteer and the guest experience manager, which will be myself or my manager Tim or my coordinator Sky. So one of us will always be here, and we'll be walking around checking on everybody, kind of filling in the spots that maybe we don't have someone. So over in Formal Garden or down in the ravine, to help our guests make sure that they feel comfortable everywhere they are out there. Okay, Chris. I think Chris is ready. While he's walking up, sorry, my voice. He wanted me to mention a small thing about the Newfield tram. So this year we are going to run our tram. It's basically kind of like a glorified golf cart. It's cute, but it holds 20 people. It is a volunteer opportunity for a driving position. For that, you have to get trained specially for that. This year, we really we're kind of changing the program. It's less tours. We're only doing one on Saturday and one on Sunday at 2:30. The tour itself is going to be interactive with food and drink and kind of getting off the tram, walking around. So we're treating it as a pilot program this year to see if our guests want that kind of a tour. Eventually, I know Jonathan and I would love to get a tram that could go down to 100 acres and make it back around the garden and all of that. But the tram we have now just doesn't have the power to do that. It's battery powered and it won't make it back up that hill. So we don't want to strand anybody out in 100 acres. So this year, that's happening. The first tour will happen on April 7th. So feel free to ask Chris any more questions about that too. It's going to be really special. We'll have a garden guide on board the tram that will give specific information for that particular day. So what's blooming the best at that moment. They'll take them to that garden. They can get off the tram, walk around. They'll be able to get back on the tram. They'll head to the beer garden where they can get included with their ticket price would be a pretzel, a drink of choice, alcoholic if you're 21 and over. So they'll have that ability. And then we're going to leave them out there so they can spend more money. But of course, if they need a ride back, we always are welcome to do that too with the tram from the end of the tour. My team also has the ability to help guests that are maybe make it out to Lily House that can't make it back. We have a golf cart, so if any point in time you run into a guest out there that, maybe they didn't know the walk was so long, it's really hot, whatever they need, we can go out and get them and bring them back. That's not what we offer up front because that could be a full-time position here, going and rescuing people, but we want to make sure that we're helping them if they need the help. So, okay.
Thank you, Lindsay. Let's give her a round of applause, guys. All right, a few notes before we move into our Q&A session here. So Lindsay was talking through the tool that we developed for you as your spring information guide protocol. That is the packet that you picked up over here, okay? On the back, so you've got general information on the front page. On the back side of that, we went ahead and, because a lot of volunteers care about this and we care about it as an institution, we gave you a full page of accessibility information. That is taken directly from our website. We spent a lot of time developing that part of the website, but I wanted to make sure that you had it in your hands, at least the highlights. There is much more information on the Newfields website about that. Literally, if you go to the Newfields website and you type in the search bar accessibility, this will pop up. Okay, so that's a snippet for you of most important, pertinent information on accessibility. And then the pages that follow that are these 4 different spots. So it walks you through the training and the information that we want to provide for you to be able to help our guests have an exceptional experience in the gardens. Remember, this is not about providing every single plant identifier and information. This is about connecting our guests to an experience so that they understand, like what Jonathan was talking about, that these are curated gardens. We didn't just go willy-nilly and plant a whole bunch of seeds and say, hey, look, what happened? It's random stuff bloomed. Like, we're really intentional about how we plant things here and that there's always something blooming. So that's incredible. And our guests wouldn't know that unless you provided them with that information. So that's important for you to do, okay? The other thing is to invite people into your area. The focus is to have a base, but not be tied to it. You're going to have a zone. So number 4 here, Garden for Everyone, you're going to own that entire zone. We fully expect, on especially Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays, to have hundreds, if not thousands, of people flocking through. That's going to be a wonderful time. That's when we need you to be on your base. Right? So that's the most important spot you got to be when there's tons of people. But as guest flow allows, we encourage you and want you to go have experiences one-on-one or in small groups with guests in those different areas. So wander your zone. Don't be afraid to hand them off to someone at the next zone. And so if you're at Garden for Everyone and someone's interested in going 4 Seasons Garden, so, oh yeah, Frank's over there. You see him right over there with his volunteer shirt? Go ahead and connect with him, and he'd be happy to walk you around that area. And then let them go, and then take care of the next group or the next individual that's in your area, okay? So that's really the focus of this. Just like we did with Winter Lights, we did an amazing, incredible thing. We want to apply that exact same customer service model to spring, because we believe that just like we did with lights, it would have been like a cool light show, but you all brought the customer service to it, and you made it an experience. We want to do the same thing with spring. Without you, it's just a whole bunch of really pretty flowers. With you, it's an actual exceptional experience, okay? Also, Jonathan went over that giant packet. So I reached out to Jamie and I said, I don't want to kill a million trees printing this 60-page document. It's amazing, it's beautiful, but I can't print that many. So what you have in your hands are 2 smaller versions. These are test drivers, okay? I still personally think they might have a little too much information because it can be overwhelming how many different things are on there. So I need your feedback on all this stuff, really. Are these the right tools that we need to be providing you for education and to feel supported for spring, okay? So one side is a map with numbers on it, and then the other side are correlating pictures of the flowers to the numbers in those areas. Okay? Again, not expecting you to memorize these things. What's more important is that you know that every single plant in those areas, or at least a grouping of those plants, has labels. And so that'll be a part of your responsibilities, is making sure that you know where all the labels are in your garden. So take a walk around your garden when you first get in and make sure you know where those little plant labels are so that you can help direct our guests and teach our guests that those exist all over campus. That's creating the experience, right? Teaching them how to use and play on our grounds. You also have some tour schedules that the docents put together for us. So you've got March and April in there. That's not just for our guests. That's also for you. Don't forget, you can continue your training with garden guide tours or with docent tours at any time that you want. So make sure that you're utilizing those, okay? All right, so that's everything I had for the first session. We will dive into more detail on the specifics of these roles in the second session. So if you have questions about that, I encourage you to stay for that. But right now I'm going to open it up to a general Q&A about spring at Newfields, and I'm going to invite Lindsay and Jonathan to join me for this part. Who's got questions? Frank. If you want them, I will get them. Yep, I will add those to my list to ask for Jamie. She literally did these from memory. She's brilliant, so major kudos to her, Jonathan. Yeah, so on that note, if there's other areas that we feel like we need or want, let me know, and we can get those started to be generated. Yes. Yes, one person per area on that map that I showed you. So what we learned last year, and the question is for everybody, and also we're filming this, so I'll repeat it so that it can be on there, is will we ever consider having more people in certain areas to handle large influxes of people? Yes. However, what we learned through Winter Lights and through Spring Blooms last year is that's not totally necessary. Like, I know it's going to feel overwhelming at times, but you've got lots of layers of other people to help support you. I'm going to be here. Lindsay's team's going to be here. We'll have horticulturalists around during the daytimes. You know, we'll have garden guides that are doing tours. Like, there's going to be lots of other people, so you're not going to feel like you're totally alone. Especially with the Garden for Everyone and the Four Seasons Garden, those positions are like 100 feet apart from each other. So you'll, like, most of them, you'll be able to see each other and wave. And so if there's like huge mass influxes of people going through in a certain area, we can also adjust and move people around to different spots if need be. Is that good? Cool. Yes. About 100 acres? So if our guests have questions about 100 acres.
So if they have specific questions that you don't already have the answers to, we have a tour that's happening in the park on the weekends. We'll get you the exact time of that, and that guide will be here. So you could always reach out to that guide either just before or just after that tour. You could encourage them to take that tour. And if they have a specific question, I would be surprised if one of the other staff that's around wouldn't be able to, that you don't know the answer to, will be able to get you that answer.
Also, I know it might be inconvenient to send them inside all the way to the welcome desk, but we'll have an associate, my team, at the Showalter desk, the little garden desk before you head outside down there. They have the internet. They can look up anything you need to know. They have information books down there too. So the Lily House also, I'll have a guest service associate there that should know everything as well. The beer garden will have multiple staff that should be trained on that too. So any of those people can help as well with that information.
Yes, so the question was, are they free to walk through there? The park is free and open to the public 365 days a year. The official hours of the park are dawn to dusk. It's very difficult for us to police that. The only thing during the week when we close at 5 is if people head out to the park, definitely encourage them to go out and enjoy the park. They can walk down and over the Waller Bridge and out into the park. But the gate to the garden will close. The gate at the bridge up into the garden will close. So that's something to politely just remind people you're very free to welcome to enjoy the park. Just remember the upper campus closes and the gate will lock if you have parked up here.
Also, one more thing about that. We, one of my associates that will be at that hub there, that center. Chris, can you get that up there? Right by number 1 in orange. That person there is going to be a kind of a floating position that they're going to move back and forth through that Waller Bridge formal garden area, help assisting our guests that maybe sneak across the bridge to one of the payment points on campus. So we aren't going to be obviously security for that. We will gently ask them to come and pay for admission for their experience in the garden. But this year, that person will kind of be roaming around helping that situation out. We saw that happen a lot last year. People flooded across the bridge. So we just don't have the infrastructure in place right now to have a point of sale at Waller Bridge. But eventually, I think we'll get to that point. But for this year, we'll have somebody kind of helping those guests at least maybe get to Showalter, that desk down there on the corner, so that they can enjoy their experience. Because we never want to turn our guests away when they get on campus. However, we want to make sure we're being respectful of the people and our members that paid to be here. So we want to make sure that we keep that in mind.
Hold on real quick. On that note, and I say this throughout training and I continue to reinforce it, remember we are not the membership police. We are not the admissions police. We are volunteers here focused on positive experiences with guests. If you feel empowered and you want to point out someone that snuck in or got through, please contact a staff member so they can manage that situation. I don't want you to ever spend your time or focus on that. We have staff members that can take care of that for you, okay? So don't feel like you have to, everybody's getting through. I love that you care. We love that you care, but it's more important that you have a positive guest experience. That's one of the reasons why we designed, Lindsay's team came up with the sticker model for membership and guest tags. So the tags, remember, the plastic ones that kept falling off everywhere, and pretty much anywhere that you walked, you picked up about 20 of them on your way because they kept falling off. Well, they went out and they did some research and they found some really great new tags that are actually stickers. They don't damage clothing. They don't damage your stuff. They are there and they are much better at adhering to your body or whatever surface you put them on. So that happens, okay? If people are, getting through and you want to let us know, let a staff member know and we'll take care of it. You were going to ask about the... Sure. So the gate that we're talking about is the Waller Bridge right here. So anytime that the campus is open, there's actually a gate halfway across the bridge right now that we will shut. It's actually a safety thing that we need to be able to do to close down campus and secure campus. We don't want people wandering around on campus after hours, especially with the amount of money that we are putting into the gardens. We want to help protect those. So that's that gate that we're talking about. And Lindsay's team is looking at what could this look like if it was, an entrance pavilion or something more than just a gate to get in. And so when that happens, we'll have more information about that. Yes. Yes. Yeah, so there is signage at the gate down there to help support that. And we're continuing to redevelop that signage to have a positive message. We never want it to be like, don't stop, keep out, paid admission only. That's not the direction that we're going as a campus, but it will be a friendly reminder to please check in at the Showalter desk. Lisa? The what? Oh.
So we were told we would be given a 2-week warning when it was going to open back up. We haven't gotten that yet. However, my team... So for those of you who don't know, the question was, when is the entrance to the park off of 38th Street, the Loop, and White River Parkway South going to open? The Parkway will not open for some time because the construction is a long project. But the entrance to the park and the on-ramp to the park will be reopened. They've promised us by April 1. So I'm hoping that this week we get our 2-week warning that it's going to open back up. What they have done is that Citizens Energy is doing a project along the White River Parkway to secure the city's water supply and fix some infrastructure. In order to do that, they have to close the White River Parkway South. And for those of you who know, if you get off of 38th Street at the entrance to Fairbanks Park, the only way to exit was to go down the Parkway South. So essentially, they couldn't do the project without closing the ramp because people would be trapped in the park. The great news for us is that they knew that they couldn't keep it closed for the entire duration of their project. So they've actually built us an on-ramp back up to 38th Street heading east. So you'll now be able to legally, and I know no one in this room ever got off of 38th Street, went to the park, and then did an illegal U-turn to come back up onto 38th Street. No one ever did that. But where the mud and the lawn was worn out from everyone doing that, they've actually built us a turnaround that's permanent. And so we hope that'll be open in the next few weeks.
There actually is a way, and I'm going to let Lindsay handle this.
Yeah, so we understand that parking is limited down there. So we have Fairbank tags. They're green stickers, and that signifies that you only have access to the park. So you aren't allowed up in the galleries. Technically, you aren't allowed in the garden, but so what we do, we have them. They can park at the main Newfields lot up here. Come in, check in with us. We'll get them a sticker, and then they can walk through the garden down the path to 100 acres. Yeah. And then all of you and us can gently point them in the right direction whenever you're out there.
And just to address the parking issue, fingers crossed, we're working on a plan to actually increase the parking down at the park in the near future as well, too.
The other question they often ask is how many gardens are there? And I tried to count them, but then I thought, okay, I'm not sure I'm counting them correctly. So do you have an answer for that?
Jonathan, how many gardens are there?
I should know, but in all honesty, I'm the like a strong voice here who says we have an incredible garden, and I use the word singular, just like we have an amazing museum, and we have dozens and dozens of galleries. So we have a lot of different rooms in the garden. I could go through real quick and highlight the big ones, but the best thing to do is, Chris, if you want to go back and highlight the one with if you wanted a number, because if you think people want a number, I would go to that slide with all of the featured flowers, and we could just count those really quickly, and that would give you your number. So this map has all of the buttons. $19. So. And we could include where it says stroller path to the park, there's a woodland border there, so you can make it an even 20. Yes?
For language perspectives, do you want us to say singular garden and then multiple beds for the 19? Does that make more sense?
To most of the public, if you said, and this is the thing that's interesting. So if you go to the Denver Botanical Gardens, it is one massive botanical garden, and they have the woodland garden, the Asian garden, the Chinese garden. So to most people, in general, I think it's perfectly fine to say, welcome to the garden at Newfields, and then talk to people about the formal garden or the woodland garden or the Four Seasons garden.
To that point, yes, that's how we'll be communicating out to the public. I want you all to be comfortable speaking however you would like to. Typically, when referring to the whole, like Jonathan said, it's the garden. And the garden is this, not down here. That's Art and Nature Park. Okay, so what we traditionally think of as now part of a paid admission. That's the garden. But nobody's going to come running after you and, no, you said it wrong. I promise. Okay. Do you want to answer?
Well, and I was just going to say, too, and to reiterate what Chris said about just, speak however you're comfortable, and also, meet use your judgment and sort of assess, whether it's they're asking a question about the garden in general or a particular plant. You can often tell if the level of an answer someone wants, right? So if a real plant geek comes up to me and says, oh my gosh, that Magnolia virginiana is incredible. What variety is that? You know that they're a pretty serious plant geek, and you might want to pull that list out of your pocket and find the list, or look for the actual tag. Whereas there are a lot of folks who just say, oh my gosh, what is that? And they want to know that is an ornamental onion, and that you're very simple. And so part of the sort of being knowledgeable is, I think the way we like to say it is like, part of the fun is knowing all of this, is sharing it with people. So, but not coming across as a know-it-all. So if that makes sense.
Also on that note, you can also invite them to a garden guide tour. That would be a great resource. And on top of that, if they really wanted to dive in more, are we still, Estelle, I'm going to ask you this, sorry to put you on the spot. Is Chad still doing his tours monthly? Both of them are. So that would be like an extra special tour that you can invite them to. And remember, we want to keep inviting them back for more. So providing something that's going on that day with a garden guide tour, but then also giving them information about some other extra tours that are going on later in the month or later in that week is a great way to invite them back, and a really easy conversation to do that.
And to put the garden guides on the spot as well, if you're here working, the garden guides have tours. I'm not going to try and reiterate the entire schedule from memory, but they have tours Thursdays, Saturdays, Sundays, and Fridays now too, right? Sorry. And so, but if you see a garden guide leading a tour, they're a great person then, if you have a question or you want to know something, to check in with them either before or after the tour. They'll meet, their tours will meet at the garden entrance in that circle outside of the employee entrance as you go into the garden. And so that's another great resource. Our garden guides go through a lot of training, and they're incredibly knowledgeable in the garden. And all that, like at every level. So they're great for that.
Yes, all tours are free. So docent tours as well as garden guide tours. Yes. So ideally, what do you wear, right? And we'll be going over this in more detail in this next session here. We'll be starting any moment now, I promise. But yes, ideally, we would love for you to wear your shirts. However, some days it's cold and some days it's going to be rainy. That's okay. We also have very bright blue umbrellas that say volunteer on them. That's a great tool to help you be visible. We also developed these great magnetic name badges that say volunteer on them. That's another tool to make you visible because, right, we need to be visible for our guests. So whatever way you can do that, the lanyards that you hopefully are currently wearing, that's another way that they can tell you that you're there to help. They're not going to ask if they don't know that you're there to help. So making sure volunteer is visible, however, and as many places as possible would be a great asset. So yes, we encourage you to, but you're not required. But we do need to have volunteers somewhere visible so the guests know that you're there to help them. Otherwise, you're going to be really, really bored. And we don't want that. What other questions we got? Yes, sir. Okay, so the Garden for Everyone is the one with the big oval, and then the one with the building is Garden Terrace and Four Seasons Garden. Does that make sense to everybody? Yeah. Lynn? This is a part of the new booklet. So here, hold on one second. So the question was, is this going to be available for guests?
Yes. Actually, this is going to be in the campus book map. So we reinvented the garden page within the map this year. We are moving to seasonality with our maps. So we'll have a Hello Spring map. Hopefully we'll have a summer map. Most likely never have a winter lights map for obvious reasons, but because people don't see that in the dark. But we will kind of move to this seasonal experience within each map. And this is the starting point for us for this. So pointing out those little sections there. In the campus map 2, that'll come out in April, the very first page, which used to be the entire campus overview page, will become everything spring. So it'll talk about all the tours available. It'll talk about all of those seasonal things that our guests can do while they're here. One of our things for our brand is that we want guests to take something tangible away with them when they come. And we're hoping this becomes that. They can take that home with them, see what they want to do next time when they come, and move on from there. So,
thanks. Any other questions? Yes. Yeah, sure. So you've got one that's got a perfect circle in it, almost looks like a bullseye with the building attached to it. Thank you, Jonathan. That is the Garden for Everyone is the circle. And then, you got it? Jonathan is so athletic.
So the map with the big bullseye and the building is the Garden Terrace here. And
So that would be position number 3, I think. Is that or 2?
And then the map with the oval.
That's Garden for Everyone, position number 4. Correct. Perfect. Other questions? All right. Thank you, Jonathan, and thank you, Lindsay, for joining us for the first part of our day. I really appreciate you both being here. We're going to switch into our second session. Thanks, guys. I really appreciate you. We're going to switch into our second session now. We'll take a couple minutes to break. If you need to use the restrooms, those are located just across the hallway. If you need to grab a bottle of water or anything. If you did not sign in today, please make sure that I get your name on a list, either a new volunteer that's brand new to us, or if you're a current volunteer, I still need to know that you attended today. Do that by signing up on this list. We also have a list for MIA badges. If you did not have your Newfields badge ready for you, please put your name on the list down here for that. We do have those. And if you are staying with me for the second session, can you please move forward? I would really love to have you as close as possible for this. Thanks, guys. Hello. Go ahead and put your name on the list, and I'll make sure. Thanks, so. We also have candy up here if you need a little sugar. Don't forget, if you want to review, this is for current volunteers as well as new volunteers. Please feel free to stick around. You can get a new one. Don should be... Don, are you here still, or are you in the volunteer office? Don might be in the volunteer office, handing those out. Do you want to drop by there? Otherwise, just come see me. I'll get you a new one.
Well, I just have the Iron Man one, and I don't wear that.
No. It's,
Okay.
we have Newfields ones.
Okay.
Yeah. You know, and again, you don't have to, but... Hello, how are you? Doing very well, thank you.
Mary has she's gone through kind of the vetting process, but she hasn't gone through a formal orientation. Is this counted?
Yep.
Because it's really the
Yep.
same thing, right?
Yeah.
Okay, that's what I thought.
Totally.
I signed her in because she was a few minutes late. I signed her in as a current volunteer.
Yeah, no.
She just needs a background
Yeah.
probably.
So she's gone through group interview, or no?
I think so. Yeah, I think she's done the
What's her last
interview.
name?
Stokes,
Something like that.
So, yeah, we'll talk about that afterwards, probably, just if you have time.
Yep.
She
what
just
I'm
ran to
doing.
the ladies' room, and I grabbed too much paperwork, so I'm
Oh,
not trying
totally.
to
Thanks.
say anything trees.
I appreciate that.
Mom doesn't need her picture, she just needs it transferred to Newfields, and she doesn't have.
And it wasn't in the box?
No,
Put her name on there.
I put it on the last.
That's weird. I'll find out why.
Maybe they don't want me anymore.
Well, I want you, so, and I'm the boss, so I will tell them.
I'll see you Tuesday.
That sounds good. Thank you. Not at all. Sure.
You mentioned that if we couldn't make it to the awards ceremony, there was someone I needed to talk to.
Dawn,
Dawn.
she'll get you hooked up with some of the fun swag.
I'm sure she's probably here somewhere.
She is. She actually might be in the volunteer office hanging out, so free swag now.
Okay.
So, but we'll get it to you.
Thank you.
Actually, if you want. I got one over here. Ta-da. The Wizard of Oz. Ta-da. Thank you. All right, how we feeling? Good? All right, so I'm going to go ahead and get started here. Some of this is going to be review. That's intentional. Remember that we want to make sure that we're helping and continuing to reinforce the different things that you're going to be helping us with. And so we try not to dig too deep, so I won't dive too much into this, but I will open it up for questions throughout this. If you want me to dive deeper, I'm happy to do that, okay? So don't be surprised if some of this is review to you. And I do want to set the tone, though, by starting us off with a little fun video.
A museum must be more than a mirror to the past. It must point the way that we are to ascend. So I challenge you to do this, to serve your complex public, laymen and scholars alike, as a link between the past and the future. And it is your duty to be a very strong link.
So when we talk about what we're doing at Newfields, right, and you've heard it all this morning already, we're really tying all these assets together. And that's going to be completely realized with spring. Because Winter Lights was very singularly focused. Last spring with Spring Blooms, we gave it a shot and kind of test drove some of these concepts because we didn't know what it was. We now know exactly what it is and how important you guys are as part of this, okay? So remember that our mission is to provide volunteers for Newfields, so for the institution itself, so we can expand the capacity to more successfully accomplish our mission, which is providing exceptional experiences with art and nature. So you are the extension of that and the realization of that with spring. You're literally making the gardens an experience versus just being something to walk through. Volunteer services values. Appreciation, making sure that you're feeling appreciated and that you're appreciating your role in all of this. If you're not feeling that way, something's wrong and we need to fix it. So at all times, I want to make sure that you're feeling appreciated and then you're happy in the role that you're doing. Excellence, always something that we're striving for. Knowledge, not that you know all the things, but you know where all the things are, how to get the information. There is no single person all the way up to the top. Charles does not know every single thing about this institution. No one can. There's too much to learn. There's too much to know. And I love that you aspire to do that, but we don't expect it from you. And I don't want you to be intimidated by that. It's never an expectation. What we do expect you to do, though, is ask questions, find the information, or find out where the resources are for said information. My job is to try and support you in any way that you need. Our lead volunteers are an extension of me being able to do that. That's why we have so many of them, and they're going to be incredible for us this spring to help provide those things for you. But we need to know what you don't know. And if I'm not giving you the right tools, like this information today, let me know. I'm a feedback person. I say that all the time because I mean it. I need to know what tools you need to be successful and to feel supported and to enjoy what you're doing. And if we're not providing the right ones, let me know. This has all been developed with the help of volunteers and our lead volunteers. So you telling and giving feedback is not a bad thing in my book. If it sucks, tell me it sucks. We'll fix it. We'll make it better. It's okay. I got thick skin. I'm a New Yorker. Service, obviously what we're all here for, to provide service to an institution that we believe in loving. And dependability. We need to depend on you. We also need to depend on you not to just be here, but to let us know when you can't be here. We understand you are volunteers. We understand things come up. Traffic's crazy. You got a sick kid. You got to go out of town for a family emergency. Work called, and you got to go take care of that. We totally understand that. Just let us know. We depend on you letting us know that you're not going to be here as well, okay? And that's never a problem. Volunteerism is what it is. It's just that. You're volunteering to help us, and we appreciate that. But we do depend on our volunteers, and so part of that is making sure that you're on time, that you have the right tools. So if you need more training or need more help, I need you to let me know so I can get that for you. Or we can get you paired up with one of our lead volunteers or a garden guide, whatever support you need to feel taken care of, and so that you can be that dependable volunteer that we're going to rely on. So we talked about this before, and we continue to codify and refine it. And you've got two sheets on this. One is your ambassador sheet at the top with blue, and then the second is the information guide sheet. Some of you received these during your onboarding process. This is a newer document, so I just want to briefly go over what they cover so that you understand what it is. And then the final piece of this is your information guide protocol for spring at Newfields. And that's the tool that we've developed to provide pretty much all the information you're going to need for this exhibition. So there we go. So our ambassador program. That is the year-round program. And a lot of people ask me, what is the difference between Information Guide and the Ambassador program? Seasonality. They are very much the exact same program, just in different parts. So the Ambassador program is a codified program that helps our guests in 4 different locations on campus. Most of them are internal to the museum itself. And 2 positions are designed to help greet people as they come into the main welcome center. And then the second one is to greet them as they come into the garden area, okay? Ambassador program runs year round. Sometimes we only have 2 ambassadors. Sometimes we can have up to 4 ambassadors. And that's the kind of makeup that we've designed and felt was right based upon not just guest flow, but volunteer feedback to make sure that we're having the right number of volunteers. Because sometimes if you have 4 people and there's like 50 people in the museum, that feels like a bit of overkill. We agreed, and so we scaled it back. So in the off season, like we've been enjoying since Winter Lights, we've only had 2 ambassadors, one stationed at the information desk, the second person roaming the galleries. When spring launches, we will go back up to 4 ambassadors. That's adding your welcome center greeter and the garden greeter. Because as we know, people walk in here and then they get overwhelmed. Same thing happens again when they go out to the garden area. We want to make sure that we're providing someone that is visible there to help them start their experience. The information guides are the seasonal add-ons. Okay, so these are focused specifically around a season. Ambassadors should be knowledgeable of the season stuff as well. It's part of the information that we provide with them. Information guides are specifically focused to the seasonal initiative that's going on. Obviously, currently for us, that is Hello Spring and what we've been talking about all morning. Information guides are there to provide that extra layer of customer service to make that exceptional experience happen with whatever that season is about. So we did Winter Lights. That was all about Winter Lights and bringing that experience to life. Now we're going into spring. It's all about bringing spring to life. Does that make sense, everyone? Okay. Things you need to know. Our hours are changing. So this is going to be a permanent thing, ideally. As you know, we like to change things and refine them, but we think we finally got it. So throughout the year, there's going to be 2 different types of hours. We will have spring and summer hours, which will start on April 1st and go through the end of October. And then we will have Winter Lights hours. So this time next year, our hours would be 11 to 4, Tuesday through Sunday. Very simple. Easy, right? So much easier. Now, when we start April 1st, we will roll these out. Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Sundays from 11 to 5. Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, we're staying open until 8. A much easier, more consistent message to send to our guests. So what that looks like for you is volunteer shifts on Sundays will start at 11 now, not 12. That'll start April 1st. You'll see that reflected in your schedules. And then instead of 9 like we did last year, we're only staying open until 8. And I'm going to put an asterisk there and say, or dusk. Okay? Because if it's getting dark out, we don't need to still be out in the garden. That's really relating to those rules. Okay? Something else I want to put in your heads, and this is for our lead volunteers, and they'll go through training on that this afternoon. If you notice at 7 o'clock, 7:30, there are no new guests out in the gardens, it's okay to go. We don't have to stay to 8 just to stay to 8. There's not going to be 2,000 people bum rushing this institution at 7:30 when we close at 8 o'clock. It's all right. If you are a person like me that needs permission to do things and I follow rules, that's okay. Just ask. Say, hey, it's slowing down. Can I get out of here for the night? Not a problem. The last thing I want is for you guys to stand around twiddling your thumbs, playing on your phone in the garden, because that's just what you were here to do. I don't mind you staying, but I'd rather you stay and enjoy yourself at that point than be a person just kind of chilling out in the garden by yourself. Does that make sense? So partner with either myself, one of the staff members that will be floating around, our lead volunteers, or feel empowered to make that decision yourself too. It's okay. Just let me know so that we don't think that you fell into the ravine garden or something. That's very helpful for us. Volunteer disappeared. Have you checked the ravine garden? Not yet. Volunteer visibility, like we were talking about earlier. So we've developed all sorts of fun different things for you to be visible. Because when you're visible, guests interact with you, right? So that's important. We want you to feel like you're actually doing something and giving back. So I'm going to clutter up my hands with all this fun stuff. So we have volunteer shirts, right? Say Newfields on it. Volunteer on the back, volunteer on the front. We have lanyards. These are designed so you can wear this on top of stuff. You have a volunteer badge, has your picture on it. We have magnetic badges for when you don't have your volunteer shirt. Now, when you don't. I don't expect you to wear all these things at the same time, okay? Now, if you want to be a volunteer billboard, I'm all for it. Like, I love you for that. That's fantastic. But you don't have to wear all the things, okay? Just make sure you're visible. We provide multiple options because I know some of you don't want to wear the volunteer shirt, and that's okay. That doesn't hurt my feelings. I want you to feel comfortable what you're doing. But I do need you to be visibly a volunteer for our guests. Otherwise, again, you're going to be mighty bored out there, right? So we've got all that fun stuff. Then we have a new fun thing. And there's 2 different versions of this. For those of you that are current volunteers, hopefully you received one of these at the volunteer appreciation reception. This is our volunteer gift for the year. If you have not received this and you are going to be volunteering with us for spring, see Dawn in the back at the end of this session. Dawn, raise your hand. Everybody look back there. There's Dawn. Hey, Dawn. She will get you hooked up with the bag, okay? This is yours to keep. Now, the second one that I have in my hands here is a little bit fancier of a doogie because it's designed to protect an iPad. So we have some iPads. I'm working on getting us more. But this is designed as a little satchel to keep all of your information. For Winter Lights, we had clipboards, which ended up not making much sense at all because it was so cold your fingers were freezing off. I apologize for that. I listened to you and I said, okay, so that's a dumb way to carry information. Let's create a bag that you can actually just wear on your shoulder. So we did. So this will be your new form of a clipboard. It'll be chock full of the information that you're going to need for your volunteer shift as an information guide. It'll have some additional resources in there for you, pamphlets, flyers, my business card, recruiting tools if people want to learn more about volunteerism, things like that. It's also a great place to stash your snacks or your water, okay? All in one nice little spot. And it has the bonus of making you visible for our guests. So that's just another tool that you can utilize to be able to do that. All right, volunteer badge policy. At all times, you need to make sure that you have one of these on you. The reason why we make you have this one no matter what is because this is for security. This is how security knows that you're supposed to be here, and also that they need to take care of you. So if something's going on, an emergency, severe weather, you name it, this is your key to making sure that you're visible for our staff to be able to clear you into a special area if that happens. We have very special emergency protocols we follow during those times. Staff and volunteers are cleared to one area and guests are cleared to another area, okay? So we need to make sure that you're included in that. Both are equally safe. It's not like we're keeping anybody safer. There's just the staff and volunteers are able to go behind the scenes and guests are not. So you're cleared to a different area in that way. Tracking your volunteer hours. If you do not know how to track your hours or you are brand new, we will be providing information to you in an email about that, okay? I'm not going to go over it in this session because we don't have time, and it's a little boring, to be honest. But we have very easy training that we can provide you and the information, so know that that is going to happen. If you are someone that still can't figure it out, reach out to me or reach out to Dawn. We will provide you information. If it means that I got to sit down with you one-on-one and go over logistics with you, we can do that. It's not a problem at all. Okay? I just want to make sure that you're doing it. And we're tracking our hours appropriately because as you can see from the previous slides in the earlier session, we do talk about those things and they're incredibly important to our advancement staff to be able to secure additional funding through grants, sponsorships, and donors. Okay? Something Jonathan didn't talk about, but I'll just put it out there so you know that it's happening. The advancement team came up with a really great idea this year to have people sponsor planners. And so they were able to, people, donated a certain amount of money, and they're able to sponsor their own planner. And so they're going to have their name on the planner. And that's a really fun way to engage with people. So making sure that we have people to support that and to talk about that's also important to that cause. And that's helped generate those funds and generate that interest. There's going to be people out in the gardens able to speak to those things. Volunteer tools. Our website continues to get better and better. Most of you went through there to apply to the program. It's not just for applying. There is a tab called Current Volunteers that has a ton of information. It will have a video from today, for instance, for people that weren't able to join us today or weren't able to join us next Thursday, where you can go through and watch that. Your volunteer handbook is located there. There's links to the Logistics Information Center as well as the time clock. There's lots of resources available through the discovernewfields.org website. As a reminder, if there is an emergency situation, we are having crazy weather, you think there's a tornado going through and you don't know if it's safe to drive, don't call me, don't email me. It's not that I don't want to warn you. It's not that I don't want to tell you. It's that we have a protocol in place that will get you information quicker than you trying to get a hold of me. There's 1,600 of you total annually. I can't call every single one of you. I wish I could. I can't. Just don't have all the fingers to be able to do that. So what do? You're going to check the website. Very first thing we'll do if we have a campus closure or something's going on, they will put a scrolling bar across the website. Second thing you can do, jump on the phone and just call Newfields, okay? 923-1331. That's the main number. They will put an automated message on there if we are closed or if there is a situation going on. Information will be available there, okay? The order of operations and what happens with that, first thing they do is they post to the website. Second thing they do is they change the auto attendant, and that's the phone message. Third thing they do is they email staff. Fourth thing that happens is I will email you. So if you want to cut all that out and just find out, go straight to the website. You'll find it out there first. Know that you will eventually get an email from me, but it's got to go through all those other processes before it gets to me. If you need support, you need tools, you have questions, you can either email volunteer@discovernewfields.org or me directly, okay? Those are our email addresses, so volunteer@discovernewfields or Morehead@discovernewfields. Other volunteer tools. You are in one of them, a volunteer educational series. We don't have too many of these. There's one per season that we have, and because you joined us today, don't feel like you have to come back Thursday. Exact same thing. If you really love our presentation and love spending time with us, by all means, come on back on Thursday. But know that this is your one training session that you needed to do to be able to participate for spring. For those of us that are joining us for the first time as a volunteer, today is a one-stop shop. If this is something you're interested in, you're still here and you like it, you are qualified and good to go for an information guide spot at Newfields for spring, okay? If you want to start volunteering outside of information guide spot after spring is done, we'll have an orientation session at the end of the season. So long as it worked out, you did great, you loved us, we loved you. We'll put you in an orientation session to wrap the last bits and pieces of information up for you so that you can join the regular volunteer fleet that we have here at Newfields. We had a lot of people do that this past winter light season, so looking forward to welcoming new people in that way this spring. On-site training. So when you get here for your first shift, myself, a lead volunteer, or one of our other strong volunteers are always paired up with you. So don't feel like you're going to be just thrown to the wolves off on your own on your first day. We're going to provide that support for you, okay? So know that that happens. We also have ongoing training sessions, docent tours, curatorial tours, lots of different places, different talks, workshops, you name it. Those are all at your access, or accessible to you to be able to learn more about this institution. You don't have to go through me to sign up for those. Okay, you don't have to be a member to be part of those. Your volunteer badge gets you access to those. Okay, all you got to do is show up for the docent tour, the garden tour, and continue to further your education about this institution. There's a lot to learn. The volunteer office. Is there anybody that doesn't know where the volunteer office is? Don't be shy. Awesome. Okay, so right over by the museum, garden and gift shop, right? There's a hallway that goes down past the two main restrooms on the first floor of the museum. Just past that on your right-hand side are water fountains, followed by, it says up top, volunteer services and guest services offices. In there, it'll say a little placard on the door. It says volunteers and staff only. Volunteers are allowed in. Come on in there and you'll see lots of information. We have snacks and water in there for volunteers at all times. My office is in there as well as Lindsay's, and her guest experience and guest services teams are also in there. So lots of people to help you out in that area. We also have bulletin boards, and that's where you'll check in for your shifts when you actually come here. Okay? I'll show you where that is on a map here in a minute. All right, there's also some information binders located at the information desk upstairs and the welcome center desk downstairs. All right, we've done those. So, diving in a little bit about the ambassador program. So first, I'm going to tell you where the volunteer office is, okay? Main entrance to the museum. These are the double pane glass doors you walk through to get here today. Welcome desk is here. Walk down the hallway. There's your cafe. There's the museum store. Here's your 2 main restrooms. Just past those, this big space, that's the volunteer office. All right. So, ambassadors. Again, remember, that's the year-round position. Different priority levels, 1 and 2. If we have 2 volunteers and we were looking for 4, we're only going to fill priority 1 and 2. You do not get your assignment, same with the information guide program. You do not get your assignment until the day of your shift because we don't know how many people signed up for the gig, right? So we're going to fill from top down 1 and 2, then adding 3 and 4 as necessary. Information desk or the AWC exhibition position rotate back and forth depending if there's an exhibition or not is priority 1. That's indicated in the ambassador program protocol sheet. We have copies of those in the office. I did not bring that today because I didn't want to overwhelm you. I killed enough trees trying to do all this. So if you are interested and want those, we can give you those sheets as well. Priority 3, garden entrance. Some days we may shift that up to a priority 2 or a priority 1 depending on what our guest flow looks like for the day. For spring, we really are expecting, especially on Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays, to have thousands of people flocking here. We did last year. We expect that to get bigger this year. So that may be a bigger priority. So just being flexible and making sure that you understand that you might be shifted around depending on what the needs of our guests are is really important with this program. That being said, if you are completely uncomfortable or you do not like a role or a spot, let us know so we can help guide your volunteerism around that. Okay? The last thing I want to do is if you hate 3, or maybe you're allergic to the sun and you can't stand in the sun all day, let us know that. I'm not going to force you to be outside. Okay? That's not how we do things here. That's not our goal. So just let us know that, and we'll make sure that we're making accommodations for you. Any questions about these specific positions for the ambassador program and the different responsibilities for the areas? Yes? Yes. So the question was labeled 1 and 2, are those on the second floor? So if you go up the escalator, the first priority 1 with no exhibition is the information desk. So making sure that there's someone at the information desk to greet people and show them their way into the galleries. 2 is floating around the galleries currently right now because we don't have an exhibition. But when we do have an exhibition, those swap and they become attached to the exhibition itself. Other questions about the ambassadors? Yes. Yes. Yeah. With the way that you're going through the program. So we're doing seasonal right now. That's our focus. Once we're done with that, we'll invite you to join us in an ambassador capacity if you want to continue on. Now, if people are going through the volunteer orientation, typical orientation process, they're able to do both, ambassador and information guide. Now, let's say you're highly motivated and you just want to do this as well. Let me know and we can get you one-on-one training to get you there. Okay, it's about knowledge and comfortability. It takes time to learn all the things. Everybody wants to lightning speed it through this, and sadly, there's no way to do that. There's a lot of things to learn, and so experiential learning is really the way that we do things here, and so that just takes some time, and you will be much better and much happier for it, I promise you. Other questions on this part? All right, so speaking to the outside places, okay? If you all want to pull out your spring information guide protocol, I'm going to be referencing this at this time. So, like I said earlier, the first page is general information about spring. Second page is your accessibility information. The third page outlines all the things for the hub, our priority one. As we saw with Winter Lights, this is a key spot for spring. So, very first thing that will be filled, okay? As you're looking through that, we provided some tips and information central to each of these different areas because we didn't want everybody saying the same thing all throughout campus. So that being said, just because you're at one and you've got your fun facts and information doesn't mean you shouldn't read what's going on with 2, 3, or 4 because those also have great tidbits of information. We tried to pair them up as best as what we thought would be asked or good to provide information to at each spot, but they are not mutually exclusive. So at 4, I think that's where we have Beer Garden or Tanner Orchard, maybe. You can be asked about the Beer Garden and probably will be asked about the Beer Garden in all of these positions. So make sure that you read through all of them and at least know where that information is. Remember, we need to know where the information is. We don't have to memorize the information, okay? These are given to you just for that reason so that you can reference them. Essential to 1 is starting the experience. Welcome to the garden at Newfields. How can I start your adventure outside today? Any kind of greeting like that you want to do. We don't do canned speeches here, okay? So whatever you are comfortable with, whatever you feel like you want to share or talk about, remember, we want this to be a personal experience. What is your favorite part of the garden? What are you enjoying? If you love the beer garden, talk up the beer garden. My God, I tried this great wine yesterday, or their pretzels are so big. It can feed your whole family. You guys should head out there. Or if you're really into the flowers at the Four Seasons Garden, talk about those. Whatever's your favorite thing, that's what we want you to talk about. We're just trying to provide some guidance on what those things are. Does that make sense? Okay, so Hub is starting off the visit. 2, Four Seasons Garden and the Garden Terrace area. That's really helping people to find the border garden and all the different things around here. So many people see the LA, they see the fountain, they see the Four Graces statue at the end, and they don't know that they can actually walk down there. They think it's like off limits, like you can't walk on the grass. Jonathan's funny. Last year we tried a sign that said, please walk on the grass, like as a joke, like encouraging people to walk on the grass, right? Because you usually say, please keep off the grass. In their minds, we're so trained to do this. You know what they did? They stayed away from the grass. They didn't read the sign. We were encouraging them to walk on the grass, and they didn't because they're so used to seeing signs telling them not to do something. So we got rid of the signs, and now we have you fine folk to help educate them and inform them, please walk on the grass, go, stroll, enjoy. It's there for you to do that, okay? So that's really key to number 2 here. And I know a lot of people last year weren't totally clear on that because I don't think that we really knew what needed to happen there. But this year we got it, okay? 3 is that magical spot in Winter Lights where everybody stopped and started taking pictures. This will be, by the way, we are test driving plans for Winter Lights with this model too. This was the worst angle of Winter Lights that you could possibly view the parterre from. Like literally there was a tree in your way and you were catching the backs of some of the light displays. And so next year we will have someone in this spot for Winter Lights, and this year for Spring Blooms, I wanted to test drive it because I think it's the same thing for spring. People are going to stop here and not know where to go next. Even though they have just encountered this person, they are going to forget where they're going and what they need to do by this point because they now see the options that this person introduced them to. Okay? Essential to all these things, and something that was a note that was sent to me by a volunteer for Winter Lights, is remember to encourage them to go to the beer garden. However, remind them they can't take that beverage in the Lily House. So help design their experience. Are you interested in going to the Lily House today? Awesome. Remember, when you pick up your glass of wine and you're strolling the gardens, to do that either after your visit to the Lily House or enough beforehand so you can finish it, because we do not allow beverages in the Lily House. Okay? So providing that information. That's important. And then 4, garden for everyone. That's one that people so easily walk by, and it's such a curated masterpiece. It's really beautiful. So being out there on the main path and inviting people to come in and walking them around the garden for everyone. That's the focus of that rule. So as you're looking through your protocols, and you just heard what I said, what questions do you have about anything related to the information guide rule for spring? Lynn. No. I do not know what the T's represent. Nope. I will find that answer out, but I'm sorry, I do not know. This is a guest services. No. The tram stop is this little green dude right here. Yep. And it goes over there. I'm not sure, seriously. I don't, like, it doesn't make sense that it would be right there. So I will find out, though. Yes. Yeah, so unfortunately, the way that the grounds are set up, we can't make everything accessible, right? We're working on what that looks like. It's really spendy. And one of the biggest issues we're running into is we're also a historic property, and so we have to deal with the people that govern historic homes, okay? So know that it's not for lack of want, and please feel free to convey that to our guests. We are working through it, but financially, this all is inaccessible, including the formal garden. Truly. Yeah. So we're working on it. We're not there yet. That's part of the master planning process that we're reviewing that. But for your knowledge, as far as accessibility is concerned, you can get around the formal garden by going down this way, okay, in a wheelchair or stroller, things like that. But going down in the ravine garden, you cannot. There are steps in there that they won't be able to navigate. So just making sure that we're preparing people for that, okay? The accessible way to get to the Art and Nature Park, there is a very steep, and I will restate, very steep stairway. I don't mind it, I feel comfortable. But I know a lot of people don't like this stairway, okay? You can also use the pathways here to get down there, but the easiest way is to send them down this service road, okay? And that looks like you exit the museum garden entrance here, go this way, hit the road there, and walk down under the bridge and over the Waller Bridge. That's the most accessible way to get down there. Sorry, I didn't have a better answer for you. Yes? Yep. Yep. That is correct. So what that will look like, the question was the bags that are replacing clipboards. You will pick those up in the volunteer office because you need to start there to get your information, schedules for the day and all that jazz. Those will be pre-packed for you, just like we did with clipboards. We will have those bags set up with all the information you need for that day. So every time you come in, grab that. They will be labeled, so by protocol number. They're all going to have pretty much the same things. But if we get to a spot where we decide that, the hub actually needs more information, then we'll put that in the hub's thing. I'm also planning on, I at least have one iPad we can send out there. We're going to test drive it. Wi-Fi is spotty out there, but it might be able to work, so we're going to see if it works at the hub. So at least the hub has an iPad to manage some information access. Yes? We will not be tracking attendance for any purposes at this point. Last year for Spring Blooms, and I thank everyone that bared with me for it, we did track attendance, but that was to inform us as the volunteer program. Did we have people in the right spot? And what we found out was some of them, no. So if you remember last year, for those of you that were here, Spring Blooms last year, we had a volunteer up here. We found by looking at the attendance numbers of the tracking that we did, this wasn't the right spot. It was the least attended spot by guests. Now, I know Josh was camped out there for most of spring. He did a great job, and a lot of guests got some really important information there. But just by shifting down here, we think that's going to increase the traffic flow exponentially and help them. Another thing to keep in mind when you're thinking about your spot, and I said this earlier and I'm going to keep saying it because I want you to continue to internalize it. These are your bases. This is your base, your starting point. When we have thousands of people come through, this is where I need you to live, okay? When it slows down, I want you to explore, encourage you to roam around, okay? The hub is going to be a little bit more difficult to do that because it's so central to everything. There's pretty much always going to be someone coming through there as a guest. But here, feel free to float around. Move around that entire loop area. Float around the garden for everyone. Float around the Four Seasons and Garden Terrace. Make sure that you can still see that spot so that when guests approach, you can either beckon them to come over to you or you can go over and take care of them. But this is intended to be flexible, and it's more fun for you guys to do too. It's also more fun for our guests to encounter you along the way. Other questions? Down front? Yes, the front door of Lily House is closed again. We're working on making that an accessible entrance. It's just not. And the ramps that we use they're not what they need to be. Yeah. So the front of the house, we're trying to work towards creating that as like the main entrance. What that's going to look like though is we have to rebuild the front of the house, which again, it's a historic property. We have to get approvals and all that stuff. So we're walking through those steps. It just takes time. Everything is Newfields hours. Okay? So we're trying to make this easier. We're fully aware that we created a model of an institution where we had all these different things operating at different hours. And so something that was really important to us is that we're providing a more consistent experience. So that you know and you understand why we did that. We were test driving things. We've been in a testing phase for the better part of 5 years now, trying new initiatives and making sure that we're being fiscally responsible, so smart with our money, while being able to test drive these things. All these things are very clear to us now, what we need to be doing and when we need to be doing them. And so you're going to see some really great sweeping decisions like hours, like restaurant hours. So it's going to be the same as everything else folding into this. Now, I will say that Beer Garden is only open Thursday through Sunday. Okay, so Tuesdays and Wednesdays, the Beer Garden is not open. Yes. Yep. Pardon me, guys. Thank you. All right, where was I? Thank you. Beer Garden hours. So yeah, Thursday through Sunday, regular hours as the institution now. Sue? We are. So Sundays, all day long for spring, we're going to give it a shot and see what having a food truck out there to provide some additional fun and a food option for them. Yes, the food truck will be located at the Beer Garden on Sundays, and that is a test drive. Yes, just Sundays. Other questions? Yes. We don't know, but most likely all the way. Yeah, we will have an Oktoberfest. That will most likely be the end of it. So end of September, but we're not sure yet. We need to see how it performs in spring. Also the menu, because we're trying some new things with the menu, making it more diverse of a menu. Last year we had very limited options. We're opening it up. It's going to be pretty much a restaurant out there now. And so seeing what that does and how does that do? Do people want that? If so, great. Then let's order food and let's carry it on through. If not, all right, let's limit the menu and see what that looks like. Other questions? Yes. Well, thank you very much. For the video recording, I just got complimented that my shadow looks awesome on the screen. I love that. Compliments are so fun. All right, so this slide, again, overwhelming, but was designed to show you where your support is, okay? So where you fit in the big picture and knowing that you've got staff and lead volunteers and managers circulating, you've got lots of layers of help helping you out, okay? So you are not alone in this experience. So we are wrapping up this part of our session. For those of you that need a shirt, if you are new and you need a picture for your badge, you are going to meet Dawn in the volunteer office. Next steps for those of you, make sure that you have signed in, whether you're new or returning. We have paperwork that Dawn is going to run up here and grab from me so that I can have her give it to you in the volunteer office. And again, this is for new volunteers only, okay? You'll need to register online if you haven't already as a volunteer, okay? Dawn can help you figure out what that looks like. I will be sending an email out to this list of new volunteers, walking you through those instructions as well, if you want to end your day and get out of here. Study up. You have all the information you need for spring, okay? If it's not in there, let me know, okay? Because that means we've missed it for everybody. Pretty darn sure we got all of it. But again, I got thick skin, so give it to me direct and let me know if there's something that you're missing. Get excited. Like, really get excited for spring. This is a big deal. Last year was a test drive. We weren't quite sure what we were going to have. Again, we know what it is now, and we know the product that we can deliver. Winter Lights proved that to us, okay? Check your email. All of you will be getting a thank you for coming and some follow-up steps for the next steps for you. New volunteers, you'll get an email with me resetting a password after you register. Make sure you change your password and log into Volgistics so you can start signing up for your volunteer shifts, okay? Dawn's email is up there as well as mine. So if you need information, you need further support, you have questions, you don't want to come to me, I get it. I don't take it personally. You want to talk to another volunteer, fine. Be that way. Talk to Dawn. That's totally fine. And then show up and have some fun with us this spring. Okay? It's going to be a really, really fun time of year for us. So, that being said, as I disappear behind the curtain, and I'm only coming up here because I made this really cool last slide, and I had to put it on there. Look at that, right? I know. So, welcome to our team, and welcome to spring at Newfields. Any last questions before I send you home? Yes? No matter what. Yep. Everybody has to have a badge. Yep, Darlene? You email. No calls. Email. And it's me. Yes? You will get assigned so the question is, how long are the shifts and what are you signing up for? We don't assign shifts until the day of. So it could be any one of the 4 areas. However, we are going to be rotating this spring, so you'll be doing all 4 locations. It's something we discovered last year that people loved, was changing up the scenery, so you're not spending all 3 hours, to answer your other question. So 11 to 2, 2 to 5, and 5 to 8. Those are your 3 shifts, 3 hours each. Cool? All right, thank you guys. I need to switch into lead volunteer mode. So lead volunteers, come on up front. And Dawn is going to say something. No? Oh, I need it in here. Yeah. Do you want the cart? The wagon's in there. You want? Thank you guys. Dawn will be in the volunteer office if you need anything else. Thank you guys. Appreciate it. Thanks for coming, spending some time with me.